And then during the course of the title search, Bob Byer finds out, oh, Susie doesn't actually own the whole property. She has a life estate.
We asked our real estate agent friends yesterday if they had anything they would like us to discuss. So we're going to kind of kick it off. One of our folks that follow us on Facebook asked about selling life estates. Now, I didn't know what a life estate was, and you explained it to me. So start off with what is a life estate and how it's helpful for people.
So first off, a life estate is, I'm going to talk about some hypothetical people, so I think this will help everybody follow along a little better. Imagine Susie Seller. She owns a piece of property, and let's say she wants to give it to someone when she passes away, but she doesn't necessarily want to do that through her will. So she may have reasons from her accountant or from her estate planning attorney that have told her, hey, this is the better way to do it. But what she's decided to do is give the property to the other person. We'll call it Bob Byer, or the remainder person. So Robbie Remainderman.
Jeez,
I know, because we're going to need Bob Byer in a minute. So Susie gives it to Rob. But what she does is in that deed, she reserves for herself a life estate, meaning she has the right to use the property, occupy, rent, essentially have almost every right of ownership for as long as she is living. And when she passes away, Robbie gets everything. When you think about when you have a life estate, and this kind of, we'd have to take a couple steps back to talk about property ownership in general. So we've on the channel talked about how property rights are kind of like a bundle of sticks. There's all kinds of things that you're allowed to do with your property: encumber it, convey it, possess it, etc. So whenever you have a life estate, you have something that is less than all of the bundle of sticks because you can't sell it at that point. You can't sell the whole property. So if you try to sell a life estate, what are you actually selling? So this is when Bob Byer comes in. He sees this nice piece of property that Susie's got, and he's like, yeah, I want that. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to put in an offer. And Susie's like, you know what? Yeah, I think I'll sell it to you. And then during the course of the title search, Bob Byer finds out, oh, Susie doesn't actually own the whole property. She has a life estate. So what can Susie actually give to Bob? So Susie has the right to use and enjoy the property during her life.
So would she technically sell the property?
She would be selling
her ownership stake in the property.
She doesn't have an ownership stake. She has a life estate. So she is selling the right to use the property for her life to Bob.
Interesting.
So what Bob would be buying is the right to use the property during Susie's life.
Bob's betting on Susie living forever.
Yes, he sure is. So that's why you don't see life estates really bought and sold too often, because of that, because you're betting on someone living a very, very long time. So if you have a life estate and you want to sell property, then what Susie in this example would need is she'd need to get Robbie to join in and sell his interest in the property as well. So you, as a buyer, wouldn't obtain fee simple ownership to the property from buying a life estate unless the remainder interest joined in the conveyance.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
The life estate thing really blew my mind when you were explaining it to me because I've never
sounds like
heard
it
of
still is.
I mean, it still is. I've never heard of it. It just doesn't seem, I don't want to say it doesn't seem smart, but it just seems like unnecessary. Like, hey, if you own something, just keep owning it.
There are advanced like tax or Medicaid, Medicare qualification strategies or estate planning strategies where this is very helpful. I don't practice in any of those areas. So for just a straight up dirt lawyer's perspective, I guess it could be used to avoid probate if that's the case, but here's where it gets tricky. Say you are doing this truly just as a probate avoidance strategy, but then something happens during your life where you need to sell the property. What if your remainder interest doesn't agree? You can't sell. All you can sell is your life estate, and really nobody wants to buy the right to use property for someone else's life. So if your remainder interest, or worst, that person's spouse doesn't want to agree to sell, then you're completely out of luck. Now, another thing that comes up is like, okay, let's say life estate owner and the remainder interest do agree to sell, but they're like, well, how do we figure out who gets what of the sale proceeds? It's a similar thing whenever you're figuring out how to apportion the capital gains, or the 1099s, etc. Life insurance people understand this, probably like the actuarial tables where you figure out the life expectancy. There would be a percentage assigned to the life estate owner and the remainder interest based on their age and life expectancy. So the value of a life estate is much higher when the life estate owner is 20
Mm-hmm.
and the remainder interest owner is 90.